level to me, right? So you just never know where that story or where you tell someone is going to go. And if you kind of Google this woman, the internet kind of blows up, all right? So she's a big dang deal. But not only that, she's had her own health challenges, but she's become so very knowledgeable as well. So it's a real honor to have her here. So, Dr. Allen.
Thank you. Because the time is limited and they want me to get this done quickly, I'm going to use my voice because I think it's a pretty exciting story because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for ASEA. I first heard about ASEA from someone who called me, emailed me from Australia, sent me a bottle, and we were doing our brain camps in central Idaho, and I get this bottle and I taste it and I go, yuck, do you think I'm going to take that? If I'm not going to take it, they'll never take it. Of course, they're brain injured and they're picky. So I left it on the counter, and every time I walked by there, I'd go, nobody would ever take that. Well, little did I know, a number of years later, at least 2 years later, some brave stranger reached out to me and just called me out of the blue and said, Dr. Allen, you have to have this ASEA. Yeah, I've heard of it. No. Okay, all right. So, okay, God, are you talking to me? Okay, I better listen. I've learned in my life that when things come around the second or third time, you better wake up because you're getting a second chance. So I woke up. I spent that entire weekend looking at the YouTubes and I go, you stupid idiot. Why in the world did you not pay attention to this and never expect somebody else to do your work for you? Do it yourself. This guy never told me anything either. And it was my responsibility to learn about the product, and I was absolutely astonished. How in the world could this do all the things I do in my practice and beyond with one single little awful tasting product? So I started using it on myself and my clients and my brain injured clients, and guess what? You can get them to do anything if you do it yourself. And you do it with enthusiasm. And I got those autistics to take this. Even if we had to pin them down and shove it in them. We got it. We tolerated the taste, and even though I had to plug my nose to get it down for quite a while, but because I came convinced and I knew, not just the science, I knew what it did in people, and I knew how things in the science world and in the health world worked. There was nothing working like this. So I had to have it. But I took it because it was a good thing, and it did all these things for other people, so maybe it could do it for me, but I had never had any health problems. So then I had a freak ATV accident on my ranch where we had the brain camp. I was taking my ATV back up to the house, I hit the gas, headed in a 90-degree turn, and the next thing I knew, 3 hours later, I woke up with the ATV on top of my left leg, and I was bleeding out, and I was dying. So I realized that in order to push that 300-pound machine off my leg, it wasn't going to happen, and I would be dead by morning. And I thought about seeing the wonderful thing of seeing my husband, who passed a few years earlier. My children told me, Mom, don't go anywhere on that ranch without your cell phone because you'll need it if something happens, even though there was no cell service there. But that phone I kept meticulously beside me, and you know what? As God had it, was in the basket of my ATV and it fell within arm's reach of me. I grabbed it, I pulled it toward me, and I looked for the bars. There were no bars. I hit 911, nothing. I hit it again, nothing. And then all of a sudden some bars came by. And you know what? Then it died. And then soon after, 20 minutes, there's the ambulance. And the rural people, the farmers come, they are your rescue team there. And they took 3 men to get that ATV off of my leg. And as they had miraculously heard my call, they knew what to do. They already had a helicopter waiting for me in the little town. And the helicopter me Life Flight. Never be in rural Idaho without Life Flight insurance. It saved me a $10,000 bill. And I had emergency surgery the next day. But after that trauma of weeks and events, I was in rehab. And then I was not allowed to put weight on it for 3 months, and I had to go and live with a friend. And But I realized after all that trauma and the pain started dying down, I was never really in extreme pain. After that, femur breaks are bad, and usually people have pain for years. I never did, and I know why, because you see it. I had no family, and I had no access to the equipment and all the wonderful things I knew in my practice, and how to get people well, and what to do, and how to develop programs, and how to work on brain injuries, and how to do all these things for concussions. But I was unable to do anything for myself. I just laid in bed and cried most of the time, and waited for the therapist to come, got myself to the bathroom, and went back to bed. But you know what? I remembered being at the ASEA events and hearing the people talk about brain injury. And I got, well, they were taking half a bottle or 8 ounces. I go, I'm taking a full bottle. I want to get out of here. I'm done. So I don't care how much this costs. Put it on my credit card and get that stuff to me. I got a full bottle and I took it out every day. My brain was definitely not normal. When I tried to speak, I couldn't talk, I couldn't spell, I couldn't write, I couldn't do emails, I couldn't do anything. I go, something's wrong. But I knew that ASEA was the most powerful thing I could take for my healing. And it was about the only thing. I took some minerals and that. I couldn't handle thinking of anything else and putting anything else together. So that bottle a day sat there by my bed and whoop, down it went. That was all I could manage because putting the program together was too complicated and accessing any therapies was impossible. Miraculously, I got better, really miraculously, because the product is miraculous. I got my brain back, actually in record time, because when I work with people, I usually get them with brain injuries and traumas and things in their brain, and I'm working with them 6-7 years later, they still got the problems. I was back in 3 months. That's miraculous. But that's not the end of my adventure. You would think it'd be enough. After helping to clean a flood, I'm back at the ranch, and it had a flood that winter, and it was sitting there for 3 months. And I got up there and helped the plumber empty it, and it was, of course, thick with mold, 2-3 inches of mold, and all of the bacteria and everything that was there. And so I ended up getting, long story short, hantavirus, sepsis, and a torn meniscus, and black mold poisoning. And the torn meniscus on my injured leg. So, after 4 days when I was home, I called the emergency, the ambulance said, come get me. I can't move, I can't get out of bed. And they came and lifted me down, put me in the hospital, and in the emergency room, and sent me home with drugs. The next day I was back by 6 in the morning. It wore off and there was nothing to stop it. So I went back, they found it was critically serious with sepsis. So they put me in the hospital. That started the whole saga of the next year. I was in the hospital for weeks as they could not find out the severe, severe pain. They could not find out any of these things that I had to find out through alternative medicine and get answers for. Because they weren't willing to deal with black mold. They weren't willing to deal with hantavirus. And they gave me every test in the book. Now here's somebody coming from a clean life. I had no x-rays, I had no hospitalizations, I had no drugs, I had nothing, and they gave me something almost every day. CAT scans, MRIs, drugs, forcing them into me. And I was helpless because I was so in pain. And again, please bring me my ASEA. There it is, right by my bed. And do you know that? No doctor, nurse, anybody ever said, what is that, or you can't take it. And if they did, I was ready to fight. And they didn't. And so I could take it and do whatever I wanted. And so again, it was my #1 healing modality. This time I didn't take quite a bottle. But after I was in and out of the hospital, then I had to go to rehab. Then they found out that I had a heart that had a valve that had depleted from a childhood murmur. I had to have robotic surgery. So the entire year was in and out of hospital and rehab. Took all 22, but ASEA was beside me the whole way. And then I finally began to get well. It took the year of 23, and I got better and better. And I will tell you, don't ever be without your ASEA. I don't take just 2 ounces a day. If you do, you're missing it. I take 8 to 16 ounces a day. You can't afford it, you can't afford not to.